about 15 cents per ton. That was much lower than what Ethan used to charge her, or so he claimed anyway. But this was a modern smart network, and we see that one doesn't just pay for the water itself. The second item was a monthly service fee for the smart platform, totaling $30. Then came the third item, $80 a month for pipe depreciation and daily maintenance costs. Fourth, since the village sits on a mountain, there was a shared cost for tiered pumping electricity. On top of that, there were rental fees for the smart meter and even a charge for adding trace elements. When everything was added up, that was the price, and that was supposedly with the company's subsidy. The villagers began to whisper that Wendy should never have signed that contract with her thumbprint. They warned her not to swipe the card, but the collector snapped that the tap was on their own land. He coldly pointed out that no one had forced them to use it, a statement of pure, calculated absurdity. Aunt Wendy stood there trembling, wondering how a simple blessing of water had turned into such a burden. The news of what had happened to her spread through the village as if it had grown wings of its own. Everyone was absolutely stunned, remembering how things used to be when Ethan was still in charge. Back then, he had bought the motor himself and repaired the pipes personally, only ever charging for the basics. He had billed the pumping electricity at the exact state grid rate, without adding a single cent for himself. But now the Lu Yuan company had arrived, and things were handled quite differently. They applied the favorite method of big business, itemized fees and hidden surcharges at every turn. They were packing the bill with all sorts of invented service charges that no one had ever heard of before. In the end, for the exact same plot of land they had always farmed, the total cost had multiplied dozens of times over, a truly staggering increase. The village reached a breaking point, and we see that every single resident was now completely furious. These were women who would normally haggle for half an hour at the market over a few cents for vegetables. Now, their hearts were practically bleeding with rage at such a blatant injustice. Hundreds of people swarmed into the center of the village, their voices rising in a collective roar. They surrounded the three-story house that was still being built for Uncle Ian. They screamed for the coward to come out, reminding him he had promised the water would be half the price. They accused him of using the money from the land sales to build himself a grand mansion. The crowd demanded to know if he was collaborating with the company to scam his own neighbors. At that very moment, Uncle Ian was up on the second floor, admiring his new, spacious terrace. Seeing the angry mob gathered below, he quickly straightened his clothes to look presentable. He walked out with an air of self-importance, though deep down, he felt a sudden wave of insecurity. The truth was, he had only just learned about the company's actual rates himself, but he had already pocketed a $50,000 bribe. Yes, naturally. So he had no choice but to keep lying with absolute, shameless confidence. He asked them what all the fuss was about, calling them short-sighted for complaining. He reminded them that this was a major provincial corporation with a reputation to uphold. He argued that a company of that scale obviously needed to recover its initial costs. He told them they were focusing far too much on the water bill right in front of them. They needed to think bigger, he claimed, insisting their water was packed with special nutrients. According to him, the water had undergone a process of high-tech filtration. He called it an investment, suggesting that spending